Hi everyone, thanks for joining in. I'm excited to have Ilsa Evans joining me. Hi Ilsa.
Hi Jackie, how are you?
Good, thanks. And good to have you back again. I know we've talked before and I think you've been author for the day for us before, which has been great.
It was really good fun actually. I really enjoyed it.
So, a little bit about Ilsa. Ilsa's the author of 16 books in a variety of genres, including four murder mysteries in the Now Forest series. Her latest book was Family Baggage, which was published by HarperCollins last year. She also contributes to several newspapers and online journals on social issues and won the Eliminating Violence Against Women Award for Online Journalism in 2011, and she was born in the Dandenong Ranges east of Melbourne. And I think I also saw that that's where you live close by there now as well.
I do. I did go away for a while. It's not like I always stayed in the same spot, but I did come back.
So thanks for joining us. Just wondering if you want to start off by talking to us a bit about your books.
Thank you. Yeah, sure. So I was a bit torn because, of course, the last book that came out was Family Baggage, which
Mm,
came out in March last year. So that's that one, which was a tremendously fun one to write. It's my usual style, which is sort of light fiction, but dealing with sort of more serious subject matter as the backdrop, which is my favourite way of writing. But the ones that I'm actually working on at the moment with the help of a lovely lady called Nalini Haynes from Dark Magazine, who's doing a lot of the work because this is a bit of a learning curve for me. You mentioned the murder mysteries, the four murder
mm,
mysteries. So what happened was rather unusual. The company that had the publishing company, traditional company that I'd sold, that had taken the rights, just after publication got subsumed within a larger company, and so the books just sort of fell off the wayside and I went on and wrote other books,
mm.
and I always thought that they really didn't get much of an airing. So what we're doing at the moment is working on those for re-release on the 1st of July. That will be digital obviously and hard copy as well. So this has been an
Yeah, that's
incredible
pretty
effort.
exciting.
Yeah.
Mm. And so who's is that through HarperCollins as well?
No,
No,
no.
it's
So
not.
this is me. So I'm doing it myself
Oh,
because
you're
what happened
doing it.
when
Okay.
when the
Yeah.
company got subsumed,
Mm,
I was offered the rights back or to go with the bigger company, and I decided to take them back again, and then did absolutely nothing with them,
mm,
which is my usual style. I just put them in a drawer and forgot about them. And that's where Nalini's been helping because, of course, they were fully edited,
mm,
which was tremendous. But there's been a few tweaks to make and things like that, and obviously new ISBNs, and it's been an incredible learning curve, but really fascinating. Yeah, so they're getting re-released on the 1st of July. And it's interesting because I think one of the reasons that motivated me was if I go to an event, people often talk about my books, and then
mm,
they get a real shock when they realise that the four murder mysteries, which have all got similar covers, they all sort of look like that, um, when they realise that they exist, because they just didn't get
mm,
much airtime. They just
mm.
sort of, because of what happened with the company, unfortunately. So yeah, they're getting a second chance at life.
Yeah, no, that's great. And how have you found that process this time, like a bit different than with publishing your other books? How have you found that?
Oh, incredibly different.
Mm,
Because, of course, usually, whether it's HarperCollins or Pam McMillan, when I publish a book, I virtually hand over control, and
mm,
they do all the editing. They know what they're doing. They do the marketing. They do everything. Um, all I do is, obviously when the edits get sent through, I put those on and do some publicity. Um, but that's about it. They do a lot
mm,
of the hard yards. So that's been interesting. Not that I expect to do much marketing. It's not my forte, and that's not really the reason that I was re-releasing them. It was more because I just thought Nell Forrest, who's the heroine in these murder mysteries, deserved a chance at a second life. So that's been the motivation. But certainly the whole publishing side of things has been a real learning curve. I think I
mm,
know more now.
mm.
I sort of wish I could go back to the start of my first book now because I know so much more about what goes on in the background.
So have you changed anything in your books when you've republished them, or?
I have. So
Mm.
we did, even though I was really fortunate because they'd gone through the entire editing process, there was so much that I picked up anyway. It's amazing the little things that slip through. And then there was also a few things that in the intervening couple of years that I think there'd been more sensitivities and things like that that I, in the second go through, that both Nalini and I picked up on and thought, yeah, you know what, I
Mm.
might tweak that and I might change that. um, and then, of course, things change in terms of the little bits and bobs, like the acknowledgements and things like that had to all change. So the main storyline stayed the same, but I think they're actually better books now for
Mm.
the additional process.
Mm. And has it made you motivated to maybe want to add more books to the series?
Yeah, very much so.
Mm.
As I was reading through it, because I always thought that the four sort of stood by themselves, that I sort of would like to pick it up a couple of years down the track because the heroine, who's a bit of an inept sleuth, to be honest, she sort of stumbles into most of this stuff, and it's more by luck than good management that she ends up solving half of these crimes. But they were tremendously good fun to write because researching, those sort of crimes.
Mm.
Um, Especially when you're doing it with a bit of a light touch, can be great fun. And I belong to a murder mystery writing group now as well. So, and they've had guest speakers, detectives and things like that, which has been tremendous fun. So I think I know more now, and I think I could sort of make a bit more of a, some plot twists in there. Whereas last time I had to do a lot of googling. Not that I wouldn't have to do that
Mm.
again, but because uh, I've never been in the police force, so obviously that takes a lot of research.
And was there anything that you might have found that really surprised you?
In terms of the murder mysteries or in the
Yeah, and your
publishing process?
and your research and
Oh,
everything when you were doing your researching.
very much so. I mean, my day job is in higher education, delivering a course that's around family violence. So my day job can be quite full on sometimes, and I
Mm.
think, I often sort of have even with the murder mysteries, there was a couple of, cases in the background which had been, my way, I suppose, of raising community awareness, but again, not being the main focus of the book. But other murders and the aftermath and the different things that detectives have to go through. That was all new. So that was all tremendous fun. I mean,
Mm.
like with many crime writers and murder mystery writers, I'm sure if anything happened to me and they looked at my search history,
Yeah.
there would be lots of questions
Mm.
raised.
And can you tell us a bit about how you got into writing? Like growing up, did you think you always wanted to be an author?
Look, I always enjoyed writing. I always really enjoyed short stories, and I do have somewhere I started when I was in my teens. The story of the War of the Roses or something. I think I
Mm.
only got a few pages in, um, but I don't think it ever occurred to me that I could. It would be a profession, or that I would be published. And I don't. It wasn't probably until my um, I'm going to say mid 40s, or no, it would have been early 40s. And I was doing a doctorate on family violence. So I was interviewing women during the day who'd been through horrific circumstances. And then I'd come home and I needed a balance. And so I started writing the first of the light fiction. And as part of that, I think it was a way of downtime for me from the
Mm.
interviews that I was doing during the day. And so it just became a bit of a natural thing. And then before I knew it, I'd actually finished it, which was a bit of a, I'm not known. I'm known for starting lots of things. I'm
Mm.
not known for finishing a lot of things. So this was a bit of a turn up for the books, no pun intended. And then a friend actually said, look, I don't mind this, and send it off. So I did. And I knew nothing about what I was doing, but I think I was more, I mean, a lot of publishing is luck. I'm not
Mm.
saying that you have to obviously know how to write, because
Mm.
publishing companies don't just publish anyone, but a lot of it is luck, landing on someone's desk at the time that they're looking for that sort of genre. yeah, there really is. I mean, we've all picked up books where we've thought, how on earth did that get published?
Mm,
And I've been to writers' groups where some of the participants have read out work, and I think, how are you not published? Because it's so good. So I think I was incredibly lucky. I just happened to land on the desk of an agent by the time when I realised that you needed agents.
mm,
And she actually had a meeting with me, and she said, "Look, I think you need more romance in this book." And a couple of other suggestions. And I took the others on board, but I sort of dug my feet in about the romance because I thought, I think it's a bit of a furphy that everyone thinks that women need to have romance in a book. This is going back about 20 years, this was. And I just sort of thought, no, I'm not selling the audience. I mean, I read books that they don't have to have romance. You can have some really, really
mm,
interesting books that don't have romance. And so I dug my feet in. I explained to her where I was coming from, and she agreed. And then next thing I know, I had a 3-book deal with Pam Millen. So yeah, it was sort of from woe to go so quickly.
mm. And I'm sure you get lots of reader feedback. What's something that you might want to share with us that maybe touched you or surprised you from a reader?
I think probably the first few were light fiction.
Mm,
And as I said, I tried to weave in a couple of social issues in there, but they're basically light fiction. And then after I finished the doctorate, I had all these stories of these women, sort of still swimming around in my head. And even though they formed part of the data set, their stories, it felt like I still owed them something. And so I wrote a serious piece on a journey of a woman after an abusive relationship, and it was called
mm,
Broken. So that was, I think, around 2016, 17. And that one did very well. And I did a lot of publicity for it. And I got lots of emails from women who said, that's what I went through. Or
mm,
now I understand more about what friend, relative, whatever went through. And I got emails. I remember one was from a regional magistrate who said, this has been really good for me to understand the backdrop to a lot of the stories that come before
mm.
me. So
Interesting, yeah.
that I think about my PhD, which is no doubt gathering dust in some corner in Monash,
Mhm.
and nobody would read it after you get it. Nobody reads those things.
Mm,
Whereas the fictional book, which used these women's stories and sort of just made them into one, probably reached more people and did more good than the PhD ever will.
mm, mm. And we've got a few people watching, so just wanted to mention that if you've got any questions for Ilsa, please type them in comments and I can read them out. Liz says, for someone who is new to your books, which one would you recommend I read first?
Oh gosh, don't read the really early ones. They're pretty crappy. I think I got better. So leave the really early ones to one side. Definitely, if you follow me on Facebook, I'll be making the announcement when the murder mysteries come out, and they're for a light read. They're tremendously good fun. But I think one of the ones that I'm most proud of in the last few years would be Family Baggage, which is the one I held up before. And the other one would be The Unusual Abduction of Avery Conifer,
Mm,
which is behind me on the shelf, but I haven't
mm,
got it in my hand. That was, it came out during COVID, and it's the story of um, two grandmothers and a great grandmother who abduct their grandchild because they think she's in danger.
yeah, I
And they
read
go on
that one
one.
was a
Yeah,
great
this
one.
is the one
Yeah,
we
yeah.
spoke about. And it's just a great book.
Mm,
So that one I would heartily recommend, and also Family Baggage, which is the story of some sisters coming to terms with the death of their mother, and going through her possessions and getting a few surprises, because often we think we know our parents and often we
mm,
don't really know them at all.
mm.
So that one was a really good one too. I would recommend that one as well.
Mm. And what do you work like? I know you must be busy publishing your new book, your books again, but is there anything else that you're writing at the moment?
Yes, so I wrote. I finished it about a month ago, so it's with my agent at the moment. And this is another one that I had a lovely time writing, and it's it's the story of a siege at a chemist. So a guy breaks in and takes everyone there hostage. Now, once again, it's got some social issues that are being discussed there, but treated with a bit of a lighter hand.
Mm.
Which is, as I said, this is my preferred way of doing that. And it's, as a reader, I prefer that as well. What can I just say? I think I don't want to be lectured to in a book. I don't want to. I can, I get that at work. I don't need to go home and pick that up for relaxation and get lectured. So I don't do that. But yeah, so it's the story of it's about 24 hours while these rather odd group of people who would never normally spend time together are kept hostage.
Oh. And when will that be ready for us to read?
I'm not sure. So that will depend on where it gets placed. So it's with my agent at the moment, and I'll know more probably within a couple of months, I would say. I mean, one thing I've learned over the last 20 years is the publishing industry does not move quickly.
Yeah. It will be looking out, though, to read that one. Liz also said that now you've mentioned your book, she realises she actually did read the one about the grandmothers and she really loved it.
Oh, wonderful. I'm so pleased. Well, try Family Baggage then. I think you'll enjoy that one.
And what about what you like reading yourself? Is there anything you might have read lately you'd like to recommend to us?
So I was giving that some thought, and as I said, I don't tend to pick up books where I'm going, because I do a lot of academic reading during the day. I tend to use my at-home reading time. It's my downtime, relaxing. But probably the one that I've most loved recently was Anne Patchett's Tom Lake. I just love her writing. It's some people, I think it's a bit slow for them, but I love the fact that it unfolds at such a gentle pace.
Yeah.
So I thoroughly enjoyed that. The other one I did for my book, I belong to two book clubs. One we do classic books, and for that one I just reread Memoirs of a Geisha, which I read probably about 20 years ago. And it was really interesting to reread it again, and sort of, I didn't enjoy it quite as much this time as I did the first. But the other one we did was Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell, and I really, really enjoyed that. It was another really nice read. Australian authors that I like, Fiona Lowe, who's also a lovely person.
Yeah.
Jane Harper. I quite like Carolyn Overington. So yeah, we've got some amazing Australian authors.
Yeah, no, there are some wonderful ones. And it's hard to keep up with all these recommendations.
Oh, absolutely. But I'm an avid reader. I think, according to Goodreads, I think I've read something like in 45 or something books already this year.
Yeah, that's going pretty good.
I go through a lot of books.
Yeah. And what do you hope readers love about your books?
I hope they enjoy them. I mean, I see reading as a form of entertainment. I also see that it can be you can educate people. Not that I think that people necessarily need that, but I love it when I close a book and I feel like I've actually enjoyed it, but also have taken something away with it that will stay with me. And that's what I try to get, that balance when I'm writing, because as a reader, and as I said, I'm an avid reader. So I feel like I'm actually my target market in a lot of ways. And it's also why nowadays with publishing companies, I can advocate a lot stronger for what I think my readers would enjoy, because I am my target market. So yeah, that sort of mixture between enjoyment and takeaway, that when I've closed the book, something stays with me in some way, shape or form.
And Corinne says she read Family Baggage on a road trip in South Australia where her father-in-law died mid-trip back in Sydney. That doesn't sound very
I'm sorry
good.
to hear that.
And she said it really hit home, and I'm thinking now it's time to reread it with a more engaged brain. So
Yeah,
yeah,
probably
that
wasn't
doesn't
the
sound
right
very
time.
good,
I
Corrine.
mean, I wrote Family Baggage.
Mm,
I based this a lot on the death of my own mother 8 years ago, but
mm,
I did leave that 8 years in between. I think it's a
mm,
book I couldn't have written any earlier.
mm,
It was almost a bit cathartic though for things that I went through at the time. And I
mm,
think it resonates with a lot of women of my age who are often in that sandwich generation where you have older parents and you've also got children and you're
mm,
sort of in the middle. And then when you start to lose those parents and you move up the family tree and suddenly you're
mm,
there. I mean, I remember one of my daughters a few months ago said something and called me a matriarch, and it really took me back. I'm not ready to be the matriarch. I
mm,
haven't. Yeah,
mm,
it was quite confronting.
mm,
She meant it in a compliment,
mm,
and I appreciate that. But yeah, it was really quite challenging.
mm, yeah. And do you find like your characters, I think the books of yours I've read, your characters are really like seem to attach you and you feel really involved in their lives. Do you find the characters stay with you long after you've finished writing?
Absolutely.
Mm,
So especially like the later ones, I think after I'm able to put them aside after a certain amount of time, but I miss them in some ways,
mm,
which I think it's one of the biggest compliments that I think people can pay me as a reader is when they say, I felt like I wanted to invite such and such around for a barbecue
yeah,
or a
yeah.
friend. And I
Mm,
think I love that as a reader. And I
mm,
think that's what struck me about Nell Forrest in the murder mysteries as well. Um, when she did get sort of unceremoniously parked because of the issues that were nothing to do with her, I
mm,
almost felt like she didn't deserve it. She's not real, but I felt like this was somebody who'd been unjustly treated,
mm,
and I needed to write that, at some stage, give her that second airing that she deserved it as a person.
mm,
So yes, my characters do stay with me, and that's
yeah.
you mentioned before about would I write another one? Yes. So after
Mm,
doing all this editing and about to re-release them, I feel like there is another couple of stories there that Nell has yet to tell.
yeah, yeah. And when you write a series, is there anything like that you do purposely to make sure that the readers like keep being involved and keep wanting to read more and more in the series?
Do you mean like cliffhangers?
Yeah, or yeah, something that you might do just to make
Yeah.
them be hooked into the series and want to.
Look, that's a really interesting question. I don't think I do because
Mm,
I think, again, as a reader, I'm not a big fan of cliffhangers.
mm,
I don't want to be hanging because it takes a long time to write a book and it takes like
yeah,
a day or two to read it, and then you've got
yeah.
to hang. Yeah. So I tend to, even with the series, I will make each book stand alone. So if
Mm,
somebody happened to pick up one of the Nell Forest murder mysteries, it would exist by itself as a
mm,
snapshot in time. But people who are enjoying them would, I would hope, would follow me on Facebook or whatever and would realise that there's another one coming out and great, yay.
mm,
But not not leave them hanging because I
mm,
don't like that myself. So,
yeah.
but then I think what I do probably do is I continue, even though there's a murder in each of the books that she's, solves or whatever, her story continues as well. So from the first book, her children get older. Her, the things that happen to her evolve. She shifts house. She does all these things like a normal life would over, 4 or 5 years.
Mm,
So in that respect, I suppose there is something for people to follow, like a bit of a soap opera.
mm. Mm. Is there a series that you like are really hooked into? I know for me, if I think about like the Stephanie Plum series by Stephanie Ivankovich, that's one that really hooked me. And also the I can't remember the murder, the
Oh, the Tuesday Murder Clubs.
yeah.
Is it the Tuesday? I know the ones you mean. No, I don't think so. I don't think there's an actual series that I can think of. I mean, there's certainly authors that I look out for. I have
Mm,
on my phone a list of my favourite authors, and if I go to the library or whatever, I'll go in order through to see if anyone's released a new one. But most of them, I'm thinking now, I don't think many of them have series. What I do with my writing quite often, and somebody once at an event called it Easter eggs. So,
Oh,
in
yes,
films, you have the Easter eggs where it's a reference to something else. So I might have in the background a character that was in an earlier book as the main character. And in a later book, she might pop up as a for 1 or 2 pages where she might be behind the counter somewhere or whatever. So I do that, but again, they're not series, they're just little Easter eggs, because I get a bit of a chuckle out of doing that. And then when people actually recognise, like I've done it even a little bit more with the chemist, the hostage situation, because one of the people who's in the hostage situation is one of the characters from The Unusual Abduction from Avery Conifer.
Oh, really?
So she pops up again. She just happens to be in the chemist at this given point. And then one of the workers at the chemist is one of the characters from Family Baggage. Because of course those 2 books had nothing to do with each other. But in this instance, the 2 characters, because they do all come from the eastern suburbs here, they just happen to be in the chemist at the same time. So I always enjoy, I get a bit of a chuckle when I do that sort of thing.
Yeah, and Kelly's agreed with you. She says she loves when a character appears in other books.
Yeah, and it's so much fun. I mean, you can imagine that the writer is sitting there typing away and chuckling to themselves and and if anyone picks this up. So it's always a delight when people do pick it up. But I love it myself as a reader. So
yeah, and what have you found so far to be the most difficult part of your writing process?
Probably the first part. So what happens when I'm writing, I'll percolate an idea for sometimes a couple of months. And before I go to bed, I'll just sort of start building the backstory. Something that will occur to me. And I'll start building the backstory and the characters and fleshing them out. And then at a certain point, I'm ready to start writing. Like the first line will pop into my head, and that will give me sort of, impetus to keep going. But that first, let's say a book's around 80,000-90,000 words. The first probably 20,000 words I find really difficult. And my house will never be so clean because I'll make any excuse not to do the book. But then I get to a certain point, probably about the 20,000 word mark, where there's nothing else I want to do. Like it's really hooked me then. And then all I want to do is just sit and write. But yeah, certainly that first part, it's like drawing blood from a stone. I'm enjoying it, but I might write 100 words and then make an excuse to go and do something else. Yeah, so that can take a while.
And do you have a favourite place to do your writing?
Not really. I used to enjoy just with the laptop on the couch, but unfortunately that plays havoc with my neck nowadays. So I tend to just sort of set up on the table out near the kitchen, or at certain points if I'm editing, especially I'll come down here, which is the study, because I've got a couple of screens and I can have a couple of screens happening. But the laptop's fine for the actual writing process. I mean, if anything happened to the laptop, I'm really, really bad at saving work. So the laptop that I use to write isn't connected to anything. So until the book gets its first save, it's always in danger, which sort of adds to the risk, I suppose, that you've got 90,000 words that could just disappear at any moment.
Sounds a bit like you like living on the edge.
I do. Well, in that respect, yeah, maybe that's the only way I like living on the edge there.
Well, thanks so much for chatting with me. It's been great to talk to you again, and looking forward to reading more of your books.
Oh, thank you. I always like talking with you, Jackie. It's you make it very easy.
Thank you. And thanks to the people who asked the questions.
Yeah, thanks everyone. And I'll have a look online and see if there's any more questions that come in.
Yeah. Thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.